tonight's going to be all about lifestyle change. And so the topic of this is healthy play and creativity. And that name came from a 12 weeks of play and creativity that my wife Steph, who is online here now, that my wife Steph and I are doing at the moment. And so we talked about I spoke about wanting to do a challenge leading into 2023. I was planning on doing a month or possibly a few months of no alcohol. Just I felt like that would be a good reset for me. And Steph mentioned that she wanted to do something, and maybe even something a bit more involved than that. And so I suggested the challenge that I did leading up to my 43rd birthday, and I think I called that my Meaning of Life Challenge, just with a little play on the 43 and obviously the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy there. However, we decided we want to tweak it a little bit, call it, Steph didn't like the idea or didn't like the name of challenge, which we'll talk about later, about sort of individualizing things and the power of words and the power of perception, because that's really important. So for me, I like the idea of a challenge. I love a challenge. That's why I do CrossFit and various other things that I do, is I like the challenge of it. I like challenging myself. Whereas for Steffi, she has different connotations around that, and so she wanted to reword it, and we called it healthy play and creativity, because that very much suits Steffi's playful personality, which is great, right? And so we are doing 12 weeks of quite a variety of different things. So we've incorporated a lot of different stuff, and I want to talk about that in the context of the talk tonight, because what Steph and I are doing is not necessarily the way that I would recommend that you do it if you want to set yourself up for success in 2023, and I'll explain why. So we're doing a 12 weeks healthy play and creativity that involves no alcohol, no grains or pseudo grains, no dairy, no potato or sweet potato, no caloric drinks, exercise 6 days a week, although that's not as intense as that makes it sound. I'm trying to think what else is on there. Anyway, you'll see it if you're not sure about the content of that. You'll see it on my social media. You'll be able to see the list of things that we're doing, right? And that's a lot, right? It's a lot of things, and it's for a long time. It's for 12 weeks, right? Now, I say 12 weeks, but in the context of our life, that's not a long time. And I really want to encourage you to think about this in the context of your life, right? Because so many people try and fail at New Year's resolutions. They try and fail at lifestyle change. And so I think there's better ways to do it and better ways to set yourself up for success. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. Shannon Davis has asked if she's able to watch this again later. Yes, I will make sure the recording of this goes into my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. So as long as you're a member of that, you'll be able to grab the recording of this easily later. If you haven't joined that group yet, I did put the link to that in the comments, so you can just jump on there and request, and I'll let you in. But yeah, the point of that introduction was really to talk about, for some people, they can really go cold turkey when it comes to lifestyle change, right? They can just jump in and make one change, or sometimes a whole raft of changes, and just make it stick straight away. Now, I think some of that comes down to just different people, different personality types. I think a small percentage of the population are really good at that. And for most people, they'll find that really challenging. I also think some of it comes down to preparation, right? And so I think for Steffi and I, who already live predominantly many of the things we're talking about in this challenge, right? We already do exercise on a regular basis. We're already dairy-free. We already limit the amount of grains and pseudo grains that we have in our diet, right? We're already quite mindful of, I've already been alcohol-free. At one stage in my life, I was alcohol-free for about 8 years, right? And so as a result, I think we've got a greater capacity to take on more at once and do it successfully, right? We've also been through this process before. I don't think either of us are expecting to stick 100% to the tenets of this challenge for the rest of our life. This is more of a reset rather than a whole lifestyle change. But because we've had that preparation, because of that lead into it, it's easier for us to make a greater degree of changes and to retain a greater degree of those changes as well at the end of this 12 weeks of play and creativity. However, for most people, what I recommend doing is making it easier on yourself, making it smaller, making it easier, making it more fun, so that you set yourself up for success. Because most people are coming from a place of previous failed challenges, previous failed diets, previous failed attempts at lifestyle change, and coming with that is often a fair degree of guilt, of shame, of lack of self-worth, of just bad feelings. The concept of trying again, of starting again, can be quite daunting, and people's perception of their likelihood of success can be quite low, and that certainly impacts on their ability to make lifestyle change. So I want to talk to you about how to make that easier for yourself, how to set yourself up for success, how to start a snowball of success, so that later on, if you do want to take bigger, harder challenges, you're in a better frame of mind. You've got better self-confidence, you've got better trust in your ability to do it and stick to it and make that change for the long term, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're not making changes for the long term, then you're not really getting anywhere, right? We've all seen people who do this and they diet for a period of time, and that might be a 4-week challenge, it might be a 12-week challenge, it might be a get fit for summer, it might be a get fit for my wedding, whatever that may be. We know many people who've done this and then rebounded at the end, right? Either back to where they started, or more often than not, worse than when they started. And at the end of the day, that's not progressing you forward. That's not making you healthy. That's not leading to a healthier you in a year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 30 years' time, right? And that's really what we want ultimately. We'd like to be getting healthier and healthier so that we can live long, happy, healthy lives full of energy and vitality, achieving what we want to achieve in life, enjoying and having fun playing in the way we want to play in life. If we want to be able to do that, then we need to be able to make changes that stick, so that we can then stack them on top of each other and add more and add more and add more, so that we're getting better and better and better over time, rather than just bouncing up and down and never really making solid progress. Does that make sense? If you've done that before, if you've done challenges, if you've done diets, if you've done lifestyle changes that haven't stuck, let me know. Let me know your thoughts on that little introduction there, and your thoughts on maybe making it easier on yourself, to making it smaller, making it more fun, making it more relevant, because I think that's really important. I'm just going to have a little sip of my tea here. Alright, so the first thing, one of the videos I did in the introduction and the lead up to this, I talked about the 3 things that I thought were most important in regards to successfully making lifestyle change. And the number 1, I think, is probably the most important one, and that's making sure that the lifestyle change is aligned with your why, with your purpose, with your life purpose, right? And so many people, when I say that to them, say, I don't really know what my life purpose is, which is a worry, right? Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, if you don't know what your life purpose is, then chances are your actions are actually fulfilling someone else's life purpose, right? You've allowed the world, whether it be society, whether it be your parents, whether it be your peers, whether it be your television, right? You've allowed somebody else to determine what you should be doing, what your purpose is in life, and you are, spinning the hamster wheel, running and working as hard as you can to achieve something that may not be actually what you want to achieve. And the risk of that is that you may work really hard and never be satisfied, because even though you're working hard, even though you're achieving, even though you're making lifestyle change, it's not the lifestyle change that you want, and it's not leading to the life that you want. So making sure that it's really aligned is really important. And so if you're not sure of what your purpose is, then I would encourage you to check out my book, Rock Bottom. Once again, you can find that on my website, drbretthill.com, which I've put the link into the chat too. But here's some questions from my book, from the chapter on finding your purpose, finding your why. Okay, and the questions are: what makes you come alive? All right, like when your eyes light up, when the big smile comes on your face, what is it that makes you do that? I know for me, it's playing. It's being playful, right? Now that might mean playing sport. That might mean dancing and singing. It might be being silly with the kids. Hopefully in the near future, it might mean going out and sailing on my boat. But you know, what makes you come alive? What gives you that spark, right? So having fun is definitely one for me. Having an impact on the health of the world is definitely one for me, right? That's why I do these free videos, right? It's why I run a chiropractic practice. It's why I'm just about to go start teaching in the chiropractic college, which is very exciting. It's actually the first time I've mentioned that publicly. So you guys are getting a little sneak peek there. That's what makes me come alive, right? Is having an impact on the world around me. And the third one for me is creating a healthy environment for my family to grow up in, right? That's what gets me excited. If I'm doing something that creates a healthy world for my kids, you know, if I'm doing something that creates a healthy world for my family unit, then that's something that really makes me come alive. You'll see my eyes light up. You'll see the smile on my face, right? So what makes you come alive? Almost the flip side to that is, what are your voids, right? What keeps you up at night? What do you find yourself there, laying awake, thinking about, trying to solve, trying to fix, right? What keeps you up at night? What are you so passionate about that you can't even get to sleep? Okay? And then, you know, it's one thing to have something that you're so passionate about that you can't sleep. That's something that brings out that spark inside of you. But you want to match that, right? You want to match that with your innate strengths. So what are your innate strengths? What are you good at? Because whilst we can find passion in many, many things, I think if you really want to be inspired for the long term, then one of the best ways to do that is to succeed, right? Is that when you pick something that is an innate strength in you, that allows you to do greater things. It allows you to offer greater value to the world. And when you offer greater value to the world, then greater value comes back towards you as well. And I think that's really important in terms of long-term success. You know, when that value is coming back towards you, that's a great motivator to keep doing what you've been doing, to keep striving, to keep working hard, to keep having more and more success. So on the same sort of line of what are your innate strengths, where can you add the greatest value? Right? So it's not just what you're doing, but it's where are you doing it. Once again, this is, you know, for me, heading back and teaching chiropractors, trying to impart some of my knowledge, some of what I've learnt onto young chiropractors. I feel like that's somewhere I can add great value, and I'm really excited about it. Right? It gets me really inspired. And I don't think I've already spoken about this, but the difference between inspiration and motivation, right? And so motivation may come for you from listening to this talk tonight, right? And you listen to it and that's great. What Brett said made so much sense. I should do what he says, right? That's motivation. And it'll last for a time. And that time will vary. It might be 5 minutes. It might be a few hours. It might be a few months. It might even be a few years, right? But ultimately, motivation won't stick around forever. But if you can find inspiration, right? If you can be inspired from the inside out, right? Figure out what your why is and can continuously connect what you're doing to that why, then that's going to allow you to be self-motivated, inspired from the inside out, so that you can keep making these changes, so you can keep maintaining these changes for the rest of your life and make a bigger difference to yourself, and thereby make a bigger and bigger difference to the world. Okay, so you really need to understand where your greatest value is. Where can you have offer greater value and therefore receive greater value? Really important is that you start thinking about what is your definition of success. Okay, because if you don't define what success means, then you're likely to get yourself on a treadmill where you're constantly pushing and striving for more and more and more, and never being satisfied, right? You're chasing maybe someone else's definition of success, or maybe you've just got that sort of carrot out in front of you that just keeps moving further and further away because you've never actually defined when enough is enough. And I think it's really important, right? In terms of allowing you to stay motivated to keep going, because if you're never getting close to it, if it's never getting closer, then it can be demotivating, right? Because it's like, well, I'm never going to get there. It's never good enough. It's never enough. Why bother, right? But if you can have a clear picture of what success looks like for you, you know, what is it that you want for your health and well-being? What do you want to get out of these healthy lifestyles? And what do those healthy lifestyles then allow you to be, do, and have in your life, right? That's your definition of success. And when you can get really clear on that, then it gives you a real true north in terms of which lifestyle choices to take on, and also a real inspiration to keep going with them, okay? And so it's really important that you then clarify not just what your definition of success is, but each time you go to make a lifestyle change, you really carefully clarify how that lifestyle change helps move you closer to that definition of success. All right, so you want to be constantly making sure that the lifestyle change is aligned with your why, but then also you want to make sure that you're constantly keeping it front of mind, keeping your why front of mind as you're making and maintaining these lifestyle changes, all right? Because that, once again, is ultimately what's going to inspire you to make the change and what's going to inspire you to maintain the change, right? So if every time I'm, making a healthier choice at the dinner table, if every time I do that, I've got a picture in my head of being a 70-year-old man with a grandchild on each shoulder, and I'm still fit and physically active and able to be playful and able to be a model of a healthy world to my kids and my grandkids, and a model of a healthy environment and helping create a healthy environment for my kids and my grandkids. If I've got that picture in my mind every time I sit down to dinner, then it's just a no-brainer, right? Like what I choose to eat out of what's put in front of me, let's say I'm at someone else's house for dinner, like what I choose to eat out of what's put in front of me is kind of just self-evident, right? I don't have to think about it. I don't have to convince myself. I don't have to argue with myself. I don't have to fight with myself, because it's like I have such a clear picture of where I want to go and who I want to be, that the choice that's in front of me is just self-evident, and it's easy and fun to make the right choice, because I can picture how easy and fun it is to be the person that I want to be doing the things that I want to do, and to have the life that I want to have. Does that make sense? And so this is where I think the alignment is the key, right? The alignment is the key to being inspired rather than being motivated. And when you're inspired rather than motivated, when you're really congruent with what your why is and how you want to achieve it, why you want to achieve it, and what that looks like when you get there, then making the right choices is going to be a lot easier. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, Alyssa says, so true, very obvious and great point. I have a feeling that was something I spoke about earlier, because it looks like that was a couple of minutes ago. But thank you, Alyssa. I'm glad you got something out of that. I'm glad that makes sense to you. I think that might have been around making change easier and how often we failed. And so in terms of then setting yourself up for success, all right, perfect sense. Excellent, Alyssa, that's good to hear. And so in terms of setting yourself up for success, one of the things that I often encourage people to do is to make smaller changes, right? And people often kind of look at me funny when I say make smaller changes, but I say this for a reason. And once again, this will come in as well when we start talking about making your changes fun, because it's equally valid there. But so often what we want to do is we want to make it hard on ourselves, right? We think that for it to be a challenge, for us to grow and for us to develop, that it has to be hard. And it doesn't, all right? It has to be a stretch, but it doesn't have to be a massive stretch, all right? Think of it like training in the gym, right? If your PB is 50 kilos and you want to beat that PB, then you're probably going to go for 51 kilos. You're probably not going to go for 100 kilos, right? Because you're not ready for 100 kilos yet. You're going to stretch it slowly, and you're going to set yourself up for success, right? You're not going to go for the 51 kilos even on the day that you haven't had any sleep and your nutrition hasn't been dialed in and you're feeling, pissed off about something at work, right? You're going to pick the day where you're feeling good. You're like, now today's the day. I feel ready. I'm going to take on this challenge, right? You're going to, once again, set yourself up for success. So I think most of the time what we do is we try and take on big things. We try and take on hard things because we think that's what we have to do to make a big shift in our life. And sometimes that's because we feel like we need to make a big shift in our life. Like we feel like, wow, this is, everything's kind of not going the way I want it to. My health isn't where I want it to be. My life isn't where I want it to be. My relationships aren't where I want it to be. I've waited until the shit hits the fan before I decided to do something about it. And so now I have to make a massive change, right? And very often that's the worst way to do it. Like I said, I feel like there's 5 or 10% of the population who can do that and do it successfully. And for the rest of us, I think there's a better way to do it, right? Because more often than not, what you're going to do is you're going to try and take on that hard, massive thing, and you're going to fail at it, quite frankly. Whether that be a couple of days in, a couple of weeks in, a couple of months in. 3 weeks seems to be the sweet spot for many people. You get to that 3rd week, and all of a sudden, one day you wake up and it's just hard. You haven't slept well, you've been stressed, you've had an argument with your partner, and you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to not do it this one time. It'll be okay. I'll get back on track tomorrow, right? And so you don't do it once. And it kind of just, I was going to say breaks the seal. It's like a phrase people talk about where they need to go to the bathroom. But anyway, it's kind of the same, right? You break the seal and all of a sudden the floodgates open, right? And it makes it harder to make a good choice the next day and harder to make a good choice the day after. And before you know it, you're back where you started. In fact, you're often back worse than where you started, as I mentioned earlier, and you're feeling bad about yourself, right? So what if we did it differently? What if we set ourselves up for success? So the sort of challenges I will sometimes talk to people about is, if someone wants to get better at exercising, I might talk to them about waking up in the morning and putting on your shoes, putting on your running shoes or your walking shoes, right? Not even going for a walk, not even walking a certain distance, not walking a certain distance a certain number of times a day, not trying to get a certain time for your walk or whatever it might be. It's literally just getting up and putting on your shoes. And you know what? That can be, when you're lying in bed and you're like, I just can't be stuffed, then something as simple as getting on your shoes is a much smaller barrier. It's a much smaller hurdle to overcome. It's much easier to succeed at. And the vast majority of the time, if you roll out of bed and put on your shoes, you'll do something, right? You might walk around your room, you might walk around your house, you might walk around your block, you might go for a bushwalk, 3-hour hike, I don't know. But most of the time, you'll do something, and that's a start, right? So this is kind of based on the Japanese principle of Kaizen, right? And Kaizen means small steps of continual and never-ending improvement. And it's a wonderful, wonderful idea. It's similar to the idea that we overestimate what we can do in a day and we underestimate what we can do in a lifetime, right? And if we do those, if we just make small changes every day, right? Or every month or every quarter, if we just make a small change and stick to it, then if we do that every day or every month or every quarter, then that ends up over your lifetime being a massive, massive change. So that ends up being the big change that you want and the big change that you think you need. But you don't have to do it all at once, right? In fact, most of the time it's better if you don't do it all at once. Because if you can make it small enough, easy enough, and fun enough that you succeed, then that's going to create a positive reinforcement loop. That's going to mean that the next challenge you take on or the next play and creativity you take on is going to be easier than the last. It's going to be easier to make lifestyle change, and then you start the snowball and it gets easier and easier and easier, and those positive changes stack and stack and stack into a really big change, right? And that's where the magic happens. So I encourage you to make the change smaller than you think you should. If it's movement, it might be just putting on your shoes, right? If it's food, then it might be just having an extra glass of water, right? I also always encourage people to add first rather than take. It's easier to add something in. This is particularly relevant when it comes to diet. It's easier to add in a healthy food like a glass of water, right? Or some grass-fed meat or some vegetables. It's easier to add something healthy in than it is to take something unhealthy out. And the benefit of that is you make a change that's easier, you succeed at it, you start to change your habits, you start to change your cravings, right? You start to change your hunger, and all of a sudden, when you get to the stage that you do want to remove that thing, or you're ready to remove that thing, it's going to be way easier because you're happier, you're hormonally better, you're feeling more full, you've got a way better chance of success removing that later on, right? In a similar way, if you were trying to detox from blue light, or social media, or get away from a negative, stressful situation, rather than thinking about avoiding the negative, stressful situation, you're better off thinking about what happy, peaceful, harmonious situation can I add in, and that might be as simple as taking 3 deep breaths. That might be as simple as writing down 3 things you're grateful for. right? That might be as simple as your why statement that you created based on those questions I just shared with you at the start. You might just read through that and remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, right? But you're adding something in that's positive rather than trying to take something out that's negative. I'm not saying you shouldn't take out those negative things. I'm saying set yourself up for success. Get yourself in a really good, positive, healthy mindset where you've succeeded over and over again, where you're feeling good about yourself, where you're feeling positive about yourself, you're feeling strong and resilient in your ability to make change, and then start taking those things away, okay? Once again, it can be the same with movement, right? Rather than saying, well, I'm not going to be sedentary, I'm not going to watch as much TV, I'm not going to spend as much time on the computer, I'm not going to sit at my desk as long, think about what you can add in. I can add in a walk around my chair, a walk to work, parking just a couple of 100 meters away and walking to work. I can add in doing a simple exercise like the Straighten Up Australia exercise, which is a really good one for your spine. A 3-minute exercise we talk about as being like brushing your teeth, but for your spine, right? We've got brochures to explain that in my practice, but also I think it's straightenup.australia.com.au. You can go to the website. I think there's even an app for it. You can check that out. But think about adding stuff in before you think about taking stuff away, right? So small changes, easy changes where you're adding stuff in is what's going to set yourself up for success. Right? In the same vein, picking something fun is going to help set yourself up for success. Once again, we often think that we need to kind of beat ourselves up, that we need to pick the hardest thing, right? That we need to pick the one thing that we've always tried before and keep failing at, and that should be the one thing that we should change. We kind of what do they talk about? Like eating the frog, I think it's called. Wasn't it a book about that? Anyway, we think we have to do the one big hard thing first, and once again, for some people that works, and it sort of sets themselves up because they get the one big one done, and it makes all the others seem easier, right? But I think for most of us, once again, who perhaps have a history of failing and have a history of, I don't like to use the word failing, have a history of learning, right? Have a history of, kind of a bit like Thomas Edison, figuring out the 10,000 ways that didn't work. It's not failure, it's just part of the journey, right? It's figuring out the ways that don't work until you get to the ones that do. Every time you do that, you learn something from it that's going to help you make change again in the future. So don't think of it as failing. Think of it as learning. All right. But every time we've had a learning like that, it's made it harder to us to get back on the boat and to try to learn again. Okay. And so instead of picking the hardest one, instead of picking the one that we've learnt or tried to learn over and over again before, we've learnt from over and over again before, pick something that's going to be fun. Pick something you'd love to do. Right. So if you want to introduce more movement into your life and you hate running but you love dancing, then start with dancing. Even if you feel like you really need to run for your health and ultimately for your well-being and ultimately to get you to your why, even if you feel that that's true, start with the dancing anyway, right? Because when you start dancing, you're going to have fun. You're going to succeed, right? Much more likely to succeed. You're going to introduce some movement into your life, which is going to make you physically fitter, right? It's going to help de-stress your body. It's going to help you feel more energetic, more positive. And all of those things mean that if you do try and introduce running later on, you're going to be far more likely to succeed. All right, so make it fun. Pick something that you're going to love doing. Okay. Same with food, right? If there's a particular healthy food that you love, then introduce that first. Right. Start with the ones that you know you can get wins at. Get some wins on the board. Get the positive reinforcement. Feel good about yourself. Feel healthier. Feel more energetic. Feel more positive. So that then later on when you go to make the changes, it's going to be easier. And this doesn't just, the fun aspect of it doesn't just come back to the actual actions you take, but it also comes back to your perceptions of the actions that you take, right? And so we mentioned this earlier that, for me, calling a 12-week challenge a challenge is good. I like that. And that helps me, that makes it fun for me, right? Because I like challenges, and perhaps that's because I've followed this process that I'm describing to you many times before. And so I've successfully navigated many, many challenges before. And so I like a challenge. I like the opportunity to successfully navigate another challenge, to do something that perhaps other people think is hard, and to succeed at it, and to feel good about the fact that I know I can succeed at it and I'm resilient enough to overcome it. Right? I like that. And so I would happily call it a challenge, and that works for me. right? For Steffi, her perception of a challenge is that it's hard and that it's not fun and that it's not something she's going to want to do, and it's going to make it hard work and it's going to make it a slog, right? And so for her, she calls it healthy play and creativity, which is the name we come up with, because that's what lights her up. That's what helps her perceive it as something that's going to be playful and creative and fun, something that she can enjoy as she goes along. And I've seen it in her already, that she's enjoying coming up with different healthy recipes. She's enjoying what I would call the challenge of creating healthy food that tastes good within the boundaries of what we're doing. Whereas for her, she sees that as playful and creative. That fits her personality. I know for when Kim Morrison did her personality types, then she was a playful personality, and so that makes sense, right? So sometimes it's not even just, and that's the wording, right? But the wording can often reflect and drive the way you're thinking, right? And so if you're thinking about it negatively, your wording is going to tend to reflect that. If you consciously choose more positive, more fun wording, whatever that sounds like to you, like I said, it might sound like a challenge to me, it might sound like play and creativity for Steph. Whatever words you use are going to help reinforce that feeling that you decide you're going to have as you go through this challenge. And if you decide, like I said, that it's fun and playful and aligned with your purpose, then that's going to help you have be much more inspired and be much more likely to succeed along the way. I hope that makes sense. So, so we've spoken about making sure that you're aligned, your lifestyle change that you want to make is aligned with your why and your purpose and what you want to be and do in this life. We've spoken about making it smaller than you think you should. We've spoken about making it more fun than you think you should, right? And so my idea is that it should be so well aligned. You should be so inspired by the challenge that you're going to take on, or by the healthy change, the healthy lifestyle habit that you're going to take on. You should be so inspired by that. It should be so small and it should be so much fun that you can't possibly see how you wouldn't succeed, right? And if you don't have that feeling, then realign it, make sure it's better aligned, make it smaller and make it more fun. And keep doing that until it seems so ridiculously easy that you couldn't possibly fail, right? And that's where I want you to start. I literally want you to start where it's so ridiculously easy that you couldn't possibly fail. And do that. And do it for 21 days, right? 21 days to make a habit is the old saying. Whether that's scientifically valid or not, it seems to work for a lot of people, right? And so 21 days, do it for 21 days and succeed at it, right? Because you are absolutely setting up success. When you finish and you feel good and you're positive, then pick your next small step of continual and never-ending improvement. And just keep doing it. Just keep making changes, keep getting healthier, keep picking up healthier and healthy habits, keep stacking them one on top of another on top of another. All right. And so when you decide that you want to incorporate a healthy habit, I'm going to encourage you to make it a SMART goal. Okay. And so for those of you, many of you will have come across SMART goals before. I know I've done videos on SMART goals before. I'm not sure if that's public in my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. Or if I did that previously for one of the other groups that I was running, I may start, if you want that video and it's not in my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group, let me know, because I might start adding some of those videos into the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group that I've created previously for another group, because I think that would be useful for you guys, some of the content that I've already done previously. But a SMART goal is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You'll sometimes see slight variations in those words, but that's basically it, right? So what that means is specific, right? So you need to be specific about what it is that you want to do, right? So this comes into, rather than saying, I'd like to drink more water, right? It'll be, I'm going to have an extra glass of water each day, or I'm going to have a big glass of water on waking every day, or a big glass of water before bed. That might not be the best idea, every day, right? But at a particular time, so you're being specific about it, how much you're having, when you're having it, what you're doing, right? If it's exercise, it might be, I'm going to do 5 minutes worth of exercise first thing in the morning every day, or 10 minutes worth of exercise when I get home from work every day, or 20 minutes of exercise on my lunch break 2 times a week, or whatever it is, right? Once again, make it small. So you might start with once a week rather than daily, whatever it is. but be specific about it, right? Because there needs to be the ability for you to measure, reflect and measure for yourself whether you succeeded or not. Because if that's not there, then it's too easy to drift. It's too easy to take the easy way out. It's too easy to be like, oh, I didn't do it today, right? So be really specific about it. As I said, on the same day, make sure it's measurable, right? So those two kind of go together. You want it to be specific and you want it to be measurable, right? So if it's like, I want to be wealthy, right? What does that mean? That's not specific enough and it's not measurable enough, right? But if it's like, well, I want to be financially free, and I just define that as having $200,000 worth of passive income every year, then that's really specific and that's measurable. That might not be small. That might not be where you start. But that's an idea of a bigger goal, right? A more audacious, what do they call it? Big, hairy, audacious goal. That's an idea of a bigger driver that you may have, and you then might want to chunk that down into smaller and smaller and smaller goals until you find something you can start with that's so small you couldn't possibly fail, right? But that kind of covers specific and measurable. It needs to be achievable, and that's why we've spoken about making it small, making it aligned, making it fun. Those three are by far the best three ways I know to make sure that it's achievable. Making it relevant, once again, that comes back to making it aligned. If it's aligned to your purpose, then it's relevant. If it's moving you in the direction of your purpose, then it's relevant. And that's really why that purpose, why understanding your why is so important. It's literally the filter through which every single decision in your life is going to be run. And if you are clear on it, it's going to make every decision in your life easy, because it becomes very easy, it becomes very self-evident of whether that choice is moving you towards or away from your why, your purpose in life. Okay, so that's how you make sure it's relevant, and you want to make sure it's time bound. Okay, and so that might mean I'm going to do it forever, all right? Or it might mean I'm going to do it for 21 days. It might mean, as we're doing at the moment, I'm going to do it for 12 weeks. Okay, but even then, if you are doing it for 12 weeks or a day or 21 days or forever, or not forever, but if you're doing anything other than forever, I encourage you to at least a little bit, at least in the back of your head, have a plan of what the forever might look like, okay? Because once again, if you're making changes and then just constantly going back to the start, then you're not really progressing there. If some part of that lifestyle change doesn't stick, then there's nothing there to build upon. There's no growth, okay? There's no small steps, there's no continual and never-ending improvement. It's just yo-yoing up and down, right? So start thinking about, well, what does this look like? If you are doing a time-sensitive one and you're saying, I'll do it for a week or a month or a year, start thinking, what does this look like at the end of that time frame? What do I think I might keep, and what do I think I might allow to slide, right? Because the purpose doesn't have to be to keep everything. When you're doing a bigger one, like Steph and I are doing at the moment, then it might be more about a reset, right? Like a recalibration, getting rid of perhaps some of the addictions, getting rid of some of the habits, so that you can start with a fresh slate at the end of those 12 weeks and decide what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. You may decide when you get to that stage, yes, that was good for my physical body, for example. I know that I've lost weight, I feel energetic, I feel clear of mind, but it hasn't been the best for my social life. It's made it a bit harder catching up with friends, it's made it a bit harder going out to dinner, it's made it a bit harder in other aspects. So I don't necessarily want to do all of that for the rest of my life, but now that I've changed those habits, now that I've beaten some of those addictions, right, now I've got a fresh slate, so I can decide which bits I do want to keep, which bits I want to partially keep. I might only do this, I'm going to eat this food only once a week, I'm only going to drink once a fortnight, whatever it might be. You can then more proactively choose which bits you want to keep and which bits you want to let slide, okay? So that's kind of a bit of a caveat on the time-bound bit, right? Don't just have a 21-day challenge, 21 days of play and creativity. Have in your mind what you're going to retain of that, how that's going to make lifestyle change in the long term, how that's going to allow you to continuously and never-endingly improve, even if it's just by a tiny bit, rather than just yo-yoing up and down, backwards and forwards, and not actually going anywhere, and actually potentially being harmful for your health, which we know is what happens often with yo-yo diets and stuff like that, that those people can actually be less healthy as a result of that. All right? So that's really what I wanted to share with you guys tonight. That's my prime, 4 things really. In terms of making lifestyle change, make sure it's aligned. Make sure you're inspired rather than motivated. Pick something smaller than you think you should. Pick something more fun than you think you should. Make it easy on yourself. In fact, make it so aligned, so small, so fun that you feel like you couldn't possibly fail. And then when you get clear on it, really get clear on it by making it a SMART goal, by writing it down, and I think by sharing it. One of the things I encouraged Steph to do at the start of our 12 weeks of play and creativity was to announce it publicly. That included a photo of the 2 of us, and it included publicly stating what we were going to do for those 12 weeks. That adds an incredible degree of accountability, where you're essentially asking everyone else in your social media, because let's face it, they're more than willing to do this. You're asking everyone else on your social media to hold you accountable to what you said you will do. Okay, so I think that's a really good way to add some accountability to that as well, and to help, once again, set yourself up for success. Right. So make sure it's aligned, make sure it's small, make sure it's fun, make it a SMART goal, get really specific about it. And then have some accountability. And the accountability doesn't need to be social media. You don't have to declare it to the world, but you might just declare it to a friend or a family member or someone you know who would love to keep you accountable in a positive way. Right? Not someone who wants to break you down and cheer for your failure, but someone who wants to see you, loves you, wants to see you succeed, and is willing to hold you accountable because they love you and want what's best for you. All right? So that's everything I wanted to share with you guys tonight. If that made sense to you, let me know. If you've got questions, let me know. If you've got particular lifestyle changes that you want to make and you're not sure where to start, or you want me to help you create a SMART goal, or help you make it smaller, or help you make it easier, then let me know that too. If you're listening to the recording of this, then you do that inside my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. Once again, the link to that is in the comments. But if you search on Facebook, Healthy Lifestyle Choices with Brett Hill, you'll find that, and you can request access there. As I can see, some people already have as we've been going through this. So I'm just going to open that up now and let those people in. But otherwise, if you guys have not got any more questions at this stage, I will love you and leave you, and speak to you really soon. I'll give you a little while to answer before I bail out. Alyssa, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. The other thing I would love for people to do is that let me know. A great place to get excellent positive reinforcement and positive support and positive accountability is in the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. So if you want to use that as your accountability buddy, that would be a great thing to do. So once you've created your SMART goal, you can write it in there and let everybody else know what you're aiming to do. And at the end of that time period, I'd love you to come in and let us know how you went. Did you succeed? What did you learn? Regardless of whether you felt like you succeeded or not, what did you learn? How did you grow? How's it going to help you do it better next time? What are you going to take on next time? I'd love to share in your success, and to help you along the way, to provide any assistance and mentoring along the way that I can, and definitely to cheer you on at the end. So by all means, jump into the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group and engage in that way as well. That would be great. Sharon says, thank you so much. Love the ad, something good instead of take away something bad first. Absolutely. I always fail when I try and go cold turkey. Yeah, you're not the only one, Sharon. I think all of us have done it at one point in our life. And so you can rest assured that you are in the majority rather than the minority. In fact, probably everybody, I would say, has done it at some stage in their life. And so this is about, having the tools to change it up and to change that story and to start the snowball rolling in the opposite direction, which is really exciting. And I look forward to seeing you guys succeed with that. All right, I'm going to leave you guys to it. Once again, any further questions or comments, please jump into the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. and I'd love to mentor you and help you along there and answer any questions you've got. So have a great night, and I'll speak to you soon. See ya.